Hi guys, welcome to the Just Kick podcast. I'm Justin, and today I'm of course joined with my co-host Jordan. And today we have a special guest, Abi. So, Abi, would you like to give a quick self-intro about yourself?
Hi guys, nice to be here. So my name is Abi. I'm a designer, and I've been in the design field for about 5 years now.
Oh, as a designer, what do you usually do? Like, what's your job scope usually?
Usually, it will be any kind of design, graphics, website designs, social media, maybe some video animations, just a lot of visual things.
Then, what's your favorite to do?
My favorite would be either animation or UI design.
UI design. Oh, okay. Then, speaking of UI, then what are some things that you find fun about UI UX?
I think what's very interesting about UI UX design is that it's a way for designers to really solve problems for clients. So it's not just like a visual or aesthetic sort of design that you're doing, but it really creates an impact in the work, and it's meaningful because it's like not just something that's just aesthetic.
Mm,
What do you mean by like not just aesthetic? Like, could you give like a more, I guess, a concrete sort of example? Like, what's a basic? Give me a basic understanding of what you mean by not just aesthetics. Because for me, design is like entirely just to look nice.
Mm. Yeah, I mean that's generally the foundation of design, which is to look nice when you're looking at it. But so generally we want to make more impact, right? In anything that we do as human beings, we want to do things that are meaningful, that have a bigger impact in the work. And UI design is something that can do that because it's about like application softwares or any sort of process that really makes a difference to someone in terms of how they experience certain things. So the design that you do is actually making a difference to someone. Whereas if you're just doing graphic or visual arts, no, I don't mean to say that visual arts are like bad. It's just that when we measure in terms of the difference it makes to someone in their daily life, I would definitely say that UI design tends to have a more lasting impact. It's like it could be the app that you use, your banking application, or it could be like when you log into SingPass. So all these things are just UI design.
Oh, okay, I thought the UI was only for websites and things like that. Cool. Okay, so then do you think that UI UX is important for the experience, right? Like the user's experience, like basically that's what it means. Then would it be important in marketing or anything like that?
I I think user interfaces are most commonly used in places where you have an interface that you interact with. So where users interact with something, that's a user interface. So if you don't have like in marketing and other sort of graphic or static mediums, they don't really interact with the design. But maybe they do, but that's like within like internally, but they don't interact with the interface. So I don't think there is any user interface in terms of other mediums.
What about things like, I guess, interactive adverts? If that's a thing, interactive adverts they do exist, don't they?
Yeah, I think quite a bit. Mostly it will be like animations where you have like hover or any sort of effects. So those do tend to come into UI UX, but that's not really like a big branch because it's sort of like a smaller area.
Like a subset,
Yeah.
kind of. So,
Okay.
so marketing itself doesn't have too much to do with UI. It's more of just after you get them to use whatever you've quote unquote marketed. I guess it's all about what they're using and all that.
Yeah, exactly.
Sorry.
Then okay, so speaking of the game ads that you talked of just now, there's sort of some UI in a sense. Then what's your opinion on those type of companies that use that type of sponsored like ads, interactive ads?
My opinion of companies that use game ads. I think rather than normal ads, game ads are definitely much better because when you have something interactive or something is animated, you just enhance the experience for users. But generally, I try not to. Like, my specialization is not too much into ads, really, because personally, as someone, I don't really like selling things or like overly commercializing stuff. So that's why I just feel like perhaps designing solutions for people's problems is a much better way of using the design skills instead of trying to get people to consume more and like just buy more things or like use more.
Is UI UX actually really about sort of solving problems, or is it just part of like making it smoother overall?
It's a bit of both because so the UI part will be about making things smoother because you are looking at the interfaces, how will people interact with them, and you're like enhancing the experience. But user experience is mainly where you really focus on the user journey, user flow, and you try to really sort of understand what problem that the user is coming to the site or location with, and how can you solve it for them in the fastest way. So, example, you have a food delivery app. The problem the user comes to you with is they want food and they want it delivered. So you need to design the app in such a way that helps the users achieve it easily. So things like maybe the reviews help users decide which restaurant is better. They can choose which one is based on the reviews. Maybe the photos help them decide what food to eat. And then maybe the delivery times that you showcase can let them know like when is the food gonna arrive. So maybe if they're really hungry, they will choose the one that's nearer. So all these are like considerations you make before you are designing an app.
But you just listed about 3-4 things, and then there's not just that. There's also the things that maybe there are other customers who want different things, and maybe even the site owner may want their own things. They maybe want to put that, oh, we have these other foods. How do you balance between what, like, not everyone would want the same thing, and how do you balance between that as well as what the site owner may want to, sell this other product at the site, for example?
That's a very good question because actually I think it's a real problem in the UI UX field where you're trying to balance a lot of different people's needs and wants because not everyone is the same. So that's why UI UX often starts with this process of research. So you identify your target audience, you do user interviews. So that's a major part of really understanding who are your audience, what do they want, and then you group them into main groups. You identify themes among based on what they told you, based on your interviews. You identify, okay, these are some common things that everyone wants while they're trying to like maybe solve this problem or based like for the food delivery app. So these are some things that everyone wants. Then you group it and then you come up with your analysis, your research, and then you based on that you can make a very informed decision about how you will do the wireframes.
But in that case, it's kind of like, oh, there will never be a sort of perfect design. There's never going to be a user interface that is best for any one place. Isn't that sort of like every place would kind of need to not just evolve. I'm sure everything needs to evolve bit by bit, but there's no way to please everyone.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So there is a rule. We don't design for specific single person objective. So it's not a design that's just focused on one single person. It's always designing to catch all the different edge cases. So I'm like all the so it's like this sort of principle really, right? where you take the edge cases, which means like scenarios that are really far apart. So like perhaps someone with a reading impairment, how would they order food delivery app? Maybe someone who is not really familiar with the English language, or maybe someone with some other sort of I wouldn't say disability, it's just different situations. So we take these edge cases and make sure we can actually cover those. Then what will happen is that once we have achieved, like we have addressed these edge cases, most people will be inside these edge cases, so they should be able to access and use the app reasonably well.
So in that case, it's kind of like, but there will forever be more edge cases, even further edge cases that can never be, that is unreasonable to be solving for. But does that not mean that, I'm thinking of apps, but I'm sure anything could have UI. Everything would eventually boil down to the same, to almost a very similar, I'm sure as we iterate over and over and over, all our competitors would eventually boil down to the same sort of UI.
Yes, I mean that's why when you notice, right, most of your apps are very, very similar. Like when you have like your food delivery, like, I'm taking the same example again, but like Grab, Deliveroo, Foodpanda, they're all very similar in terms of how everything is structured. Similarly, maybe even for banking, all the apps are very similar because there is a reason. There's a rule in UI UX that says, I don't really recall the name, but there's a rule that says actually users use your competitors' services more than they do yours, which is true. Like most people spend most of their time on other apps than they use your app. So we will try to make the design flows as possible to others so that when someone comes on board, like from Foodpanda to Grab, they can actually understand what the app is using or doing. Versus like maybe someone is on UOB, then they sign up for DBS. They should be able to easily convert over. And
but why not try to make people accustomed to your UI? Like if I take for example like a phone, if I take like a phone, and a few years ago they had the home button, and afterwards they slowly dropped it. But I'm sure someone had to first be the pilot to say I don't want to, I want to get rid of this thing, and eventually everyone followed suit. But what is that? Does that mean you shouldn't be the one that makes that first change in that case? Like it sounds like you're risking a lot because people like this one thing, they don't feel or see a problem with it, and you're trying to step out for not no reason, but what may seem very risky to a lot of people.
Yeah, it's definitely true that sometimes we tend to become more safe and like not too inventive because the main problem is most users are already accustomed to something and it's very, very hard to break user habit. It's like one of the hardest things to do because if the user doesn't like it, they'll just go back to someone else who already has what they want. So we always have to be cautious that what we are proposing has value for them. So like example, if I am doing removing the home button, there should still be a way for them to like I don't know, like get to home. So that's swipe up obviously. So there should be a way for them to do it, and it should be easier than actually the original solution. Otherwise, there's really no reason because it goes against the very principles where you're making things harder for your user when there's no reason to do it.
But I guess with something like an app where you're just designing a home face, it's not a expensive, like a phone would be very expensive. An app is just you, or it's just something that you program and then eventually you can change it, you can revert it back and so on. Shouldn't that mean you should just throw everything at the wall, every sort of minor idea that you have, every accessibility feature that you have possible, and just see what sticks, what doesn't?
I mean, it's good to be innovative and like explore different sort of things, but ultimately we must also keep in mind that certain things are like sort of industry standard. which means there are certain things that most people are very very used to. So we don't try to push the
Boundaries.
too hard, but of course we also need to make sure that in the design that we do is always a little bit different from our competitors or like whoever is in the same realm, so that people can tell right off the bat that this is your design, because obviously we don't want to copy anybody's design. We want to have our own unique design.
Then you're mentioning, so there's this industry standard. Then you also mentioned how companies need to find a way to stand out, right? So what are, like, is there any off the bat companies that manage to do this?
I think, for example, like the phone, like a phone,
Yeah.
getting rid of a home button was, I guess, in the past it would have been ridiculous. Now, in hindsight, it's revolutionary.
Yeah.
Can you think of any sort of
Like, yeah, for
examples
websites,
from-
or is there any food delivery apps that do that?
anything that you can think of, just like
Mm.
UX related? I'm sure something like a, I don't want to say a search engine, but those probably don't have anything.
I think actually search engine wise, there is like a very interesting sort of user experience detail, because you notice you go to other search engines, right, Yahoo or Bing, they're always like filled with a lot of things on the page. Like it's just like quite a dense information dense page, but Google usually has a very clean sort of look. So that's actually something that's not the norm. It's breaking the industry standard, because when you look at the other search engines, they're always very dense. Like the search bar is on top, and then you have like a page filled with info most of the time. So when Google started, and even now, they are like quite really the outlier, where they have a empty page with just a search bar, and it's quite it's example of good design, because once you see that empty page with the search bar, you know whose search you are in. You don't even need to see the logo, right?
I guess, but does that not mean that eventually, okay, I don't use the other search engines. I mean, I think I probably came from an era where Google was the standard. But first of all, do our search engines actually still have clutter on their search page? I actually don't know. Now that Google is so prevalent, I don't really use Bing or Edge or.
Last time visited both of them, they did.
They did.
I think they should have, because if they did make a change, it would be quite a big news.
But they should then be changing to a more simplistic page. Should they not? If Google, which is the biggest one, is doing that, they should follow suit, shouldn't they? Or is there any reason that they should stand their ground and stay with a not cluttered but a much more filled page with more?
More informative. Right off the bat, I think one reason I can think of is that because you have people who have moved on to Google, but some people are still staying on Yahoo or Bing. And the reason they're doing that is because it's different from Google. So if you adopt the exact things that Google is doing, then there is really no reason for the two different search engines to exist. So sometimes even when you're not following the industry leader, it can be meaningful to just have your own path. You don't need to always follow all the trends.
So it's really subjective to industry lah.
Yeah, and very subjective to the company also, not just industry.
How often is is the UX actually a USP? I'm sure different products will definitely have different sort of things, but if I'm thinking like an app, oftentimes an app or a search engine and all that, how often is the USP actually going to be okay, maybe not search engine isn't great. Think of maybe I would say the apps are the ones that I'm thinking of, those with a lot of the same sort of services that you're using, food delivery, if you're doing something like subscription, like Netflix, all that. What is that one called?
Disney Plus,
What do you call the genre that they're the streaming services,
apps,
streaming
streaming
apps, things like that.
services,
How often with these sort of things, USB isn't exactly the USB isn't the user experience. The USB is usually something else about them. Like how in this case, something like the streaming services where they don't need to, or their selling point is not the user experience. Why should they care? Why should they still care to put like a lot or even much effort into their user experience?
I mean, in some ways, right? You cannot have a business that's USP is only user experience. You must be giving something of value to your customer, right? But user experience is definitely, like, I would say it's either not part of your main USP, but in the end, it always has to be part of your model or like your USP, because I think without good user experience, you're not gonna retain customers. You're not gonna have anyone using your website for a long term. Really, if there's someone with a better user experience, similar USP, people will move over, because to them, what matters is value and also experience. If they feel better, so user experience is how people feel when they use your product, and that has a lot of value. It's not tangible, it's not mandatory, but people will sometimes even spend more to actually have a better user experience. It's the same with luxury hotels and budget hotels. Why do you go to luxury hotels if you could just spend less at budget hotels?
Yes.
Because budget hotel is cheap. Luxury hotels. What besides
You pay for the experience.
pay for the
I guess.
experience?
Yeah.
Or if you got money lah.
Yeah, same logic.
Yeah, but okay, I've just thought of like a different company, which is there's a company I see a lot that people complain about the UI itself, which is YouTube. Now YouTube is kind of like it's the dominant of its. How do you describe it? YouTube
It's
as a
industry
video? It is the entire industry. It's the monopoly. There's basically no other competitors which can keep up with it. There's Vimeo, there's
Nah,
things like
they're
that, but they don't really exist. Why does YouTube still change their UI? And how do they even check whether this UI is nice? Because every time I see a YouTube change, YouTube can change the smallest thing, and someone will complain. Someone will complain about something.
For example, they remove the
Okay.
showing of the dislike button.
Okay, that one's a bit different. That one's a different. I'm thinking like
No,
moving. I'm thinking like moving this thing to the side, even though no one really
Oh.
asked for it.
Or something like Instagram. More recently, Instagram has done that.
What do they do?
So they moved, like they experimented moving the post button around quite a few places, and I think it got so bad they had to change it back to how it was originally.
Okay, but first of all, what is the incentive for a company like this to be changing? You know, the phrase like if it isn't broken, don't fix it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Why are they touching it? And how did they? Yeah, why are they touching it? I hate it. Why do they keep touching it?
I think they're probably just looking for better engagement or better like user experience. So sometimes they will usually, like most companies will conduct small private tests. So they will have a group of users test out the demo designs that they have worked on, and then they might have found that actually this is better. So they would have implemented it on their live website. But perhaps sometimes some studies are smaller in scale, right? So it might not really work out in larger like demographics, larger number of people. It might not actually scale in the same way. So sometimes you do changes, then you do them back. Yeah. But usually it's done with a lot of research, but that's the nature of research. Unless you do it,
It's always biased too.
yeah, there's no study that you can say is completely as it is in like the real population. Studies always tend to be slightly skewed. So
But if why should Instagram move their posting button around if if let's say we've used it for years and we are so used to this thing being, I don't know where it is, I don't post. It's on where it is. Why what is their incentive? Would it really draw more people to keep using them? Are there people who's really thinking, if it's been there like that for years, are there people who are really thinking, I don't like to use Instagram because I find this inconvenient?
One thing they did for Instagram was that they replaced where the post button was, they replaced it with the Instagram Reels function.
Was it?
Yeah, so was that intentional?
I wouldn't know. You must ask Instagram.
It's not on Instagram, okay.
But I think probably because they wanted to add more like
Why
different
is-
types of media, so they maybe like try to compile it together or make it easy for you to choose different types at a glance. I am guessing.
Have you ever dropped anything because you didn't like the UI? Yeah.
Quite a bit. Like, but I can't recall anything off the bat.
As someone who does work on UI related things, do you ever use something and you just think, wow, this is terrible, I hate it, like you immediately know why it's bad?
Yeah, I think like sometimes it's just like a problem when you're in a specific field.
Yeah.
You can never like switch it off, like because like it's just your mind is always
Yeah.
sort of
You're
on
tuned,
that.
you're tuned to think
Yeah,
about.
so you just notice it, and then even when you're not even thinking about work, like sometimes when I'm on some apps, I'm like, oh god, this is horrible. Get me out of here faster.
But UI and all that, it's supposed to be subtle in the sense of like, if it's good, I'm thinking of it like an acting where it's like, if it's good, you won't notice it.
Yeah, that's true.
So it really is like a secret, not secret, it's like the behind the scenes work. Like your flashy thing may be your product, but behind the scenes, you need the UX puts in a lot of effort as well.
Yeah, I would say it's quite true. I think good, actually for all design really, like if you shouldn't notice good design. That's what makes it very good, because it's like just transparent, and the only thing you notice is the message or the info that the design is trying to tell you.
Yeah, but then that's even harder. Like if you ask me what is wrong, like if you show me an app and then you ask me what issues you have with it, if I don't, it's not often that you notice UI as an issue, and if it isn't so stark of an issue, kind of like most places have good UI right now. Not most places, a lot of good things have good UI, but I'm sure they'd like to improve. How does they get like the answer out of me of like, oh, I would rather have a button here, for example, because I wouldn't consciously think I need an extra button here to help me with this. I kind of just know that I may just know that something's wrong, or I may not even say it.
Yeah, that's the role of the UI designer. So the designer would actually explore different options, and then they will test it with the user. So the user doesn't really feedback on how things go, or like where should I position it, or how they feel. Like they wouldn't be giving very specific design feedback. When we do test or any sort of interview, we're generally asking them, how do you feel about this design? Sorry, not design. How do you feel about this product? So it's always like a complete thing for them. And like, how easy was it for you to achieve this task? Let's say maybe they're ordering something, like an e-commerce site. So we'll ask them, oh, how easy was it for you to order this? Were you able to find some specific information? So based on that, we will analyze, and it's our job to find out why are they having problems. So let's say someone is unable to find maybe the shipping information. Actually, they wouldn't even be able to tell us. We would just notice like a lot of people maybe reach the cart and then they keep dropping. So then we would try to find out like why are a lot of people reaching the cart but they're not checking out. So we'll find out like, okay, so some of this information is missing, so they're not sure maybe when they get their order. So maybe that's why they are dropping, because they don't know when they will actually get it delivered. Then we would do like a reverse engineer. Then we'll find out. Then we'll add that info in, sort of thing.
Wait, then is there anything that you have made that you still use, or there's nothing much?
What are you even proud of?
Yeah.
What's something you did that you thought that was a great, well done me? What was the something that you were so
Well done, me. That sounds
Yeah.
narcissistic.
What's your narcissistic moment? That was a good UI right there. No, that was a fantastic UI.
Generally over here we do more of like informational websites for NUS and TU, so it's not too much of like a UI, not at the moment, like only
Yeah.
one sparingly, which is the sustainability game. But in websites I quite liked some of the websites that we have done for NUS. Most of them are really like a lengthy process because they have a lot of pages and they're really quite fun to work with. But one of them is specifically the Mind Science Center or the Women's Health Center. Both of them were really fun and quite interesting to work with because we had a lot of interesting sort of designs that we were doing, like some illustration work that was interactive, and then for the Mind Science Center there was a lot of complex sort of animations that I had to work together with the developer. So it's just like a not very standard sort of design. So that's why I really enjoyed both of them.
But that doesn't necessarily mean like using the same standard UI and the try and test the thing. That's not really a bad thing, is it? It's like, especially for websites where everyone wants a website, and for some place, and not every place needs a flashy website kind of. Does every place need a very nice? No, sure. Every place tries to have a very nice, interactive, with the most convenient and all that website, or like what incentive is there to draw people to make a very nice website instead of just a simple one that gets the job done?
Well, firstly, it's the budget
Yeah.
of how much they want to spend.
Okay, yeah, let's exclude budget.
And then secondly, it's always about what the users need at that, like from the client. So it's not always about the business. In fact, I would say the last person who matters when you're doing something for users is the company or the website, the client you're building it for, because a lot of times they tend to overcomplicate things and sort of go in a different direction than the actual UI UX that we're doing. So I think it's just a matter of what do the clients actually need. If it's a very complex sort of website and they need a lot of individual interactions, or they need a lot of different sort of process, then I think if they need it, then we have to give it. But if it's a very relatively simple sort of thing that you're doing, then they don't really need a very complex sort of website.
Yeah.
Then speaking of, like, the number one concern is budget, right? And considering since UI UX is quite an important thing for companies, especially if they want to stand out or they want to make life easier, is it expensive usually?
I think, I mean, it's relatively, if you want to do it well, it's quite expensive because you have quite a bit of lengthy research portions to be done before you actually design. So, I mean, you need time for all that sort of research, interview, like all those different studies that you do before you arrive at the best sort of design you can for your users. So yeah, if you want to do it well, it will be expensive.
Okay, so you just pay for what you pay more, like just something higher quality. You
Yeah.
just okay then.
That's the same with anything.
Then we'll, like, with all the things, like there's a lot of hype about AI now and how AI can help. Does AI really AI really useful in this specific field?
I mean, recently I saw this update that showed like some of the AI softwares really reading your sketches or wireframes and they're converting it into code. So I think there's a lot of potential to explore in this sort of AI. It's still quite new, but I think there's a lot of interesting things that are happening here where I think it might actually help designers because it's like speeding up a lot of the process that would definitely take like maybe weeks or months. But I think ultimately the idea or the concept, the research has to come from the researchers and the designers because that's informed from the real world of like how you observe users behaving and your own idea and creation. And I don't think that's something AI can do, at least not now.
So, kind of just thinking that like a website, sometimes you see very glamorous animations, even just from like page to page. Sometimes you'll just, or even just hovering over a button, you'll see an animation. Is that, what is it? As in, if those, how do you balance out like too many and too little animations versus just a simple click and it goes to the next page and all that? Like, there is too much, isn't there? Is there too much of like animation, too much, too many buttons, too many whatever?
Not, I think it's very hard to say that in a very general sense, but I think it always depends on the content. Like, is it like a very research oriented web page that you're designing? Then I think the animations are very off topic. But if it's like a very, like maybe like a fashion house or like a actual animator's portfolio, then I think it really makes sense to have all those animations, make it very creative and flamboyant. So it's always about the theme and does it make sense in the actual context.
So it's just all very subjective lah. This whole field is just based on.
That's the entire design field, yes.
Yeah. Okay. There's a reason why I'm not a designer then.
No, but then I was thinking, kind of like, when if this thing takes a lot of, so this would basically just take a lot of practice as someone. So you do UI and UX, but every company will have a different. Every single company will be slightly different from another, or at times very drastically different. How do you even adapt? Let's say you go to this company, and you go to like a fashion company, for example, and you've never worked in a fashion in your life. How do you even learn about you yourself? How do you learn the solutions to that as someone who doesn't know anything about it?
Nice question.
Like how do you prepare yourself? Let's say if you were to move to another, like you're currently working on. Okay, currently we are an agency, so we work on any sort of. We could work on any company. But let's say you move to a specific company itself. Let's say you move to a phone company, and so your thing is all about, okay, not a phone company. Let's say a specific website. This company who has a website. How do you learn what they need, and then once you move to another one after that, you have to relearn everything once again? Wouldn't it make sense to stay with one field and then only work on the UI of that, since you are mostly experienced with that UI?
Yeah, there are some designers who do just that. Like some people only work in fintech, etc. But I think the principles of design don't really change. The principles of UI UX don't really change. It's the same wherever you are. Like a good design is a good design, whichever field you are. And as a designer, you should be able to do good design in a lot of different fields, because I think like the fields might be different, but design is still the same. Yes, does that make sense?
Yeah. Then how do like companies that specialize in UI UX, how do they differentiate themselves from other people who do the same thing? Since you mentioned it should be about the same across the board.
Do you mean they differentiate themselves in terms of the marketing or
Yeah,
their
like-
design?
Like both lah.
That's a very complex question. I guess it's just mostly they probably differentiate themselves in terms of their portfolio, like the kind of clients they have worked with, the experience that they have. So it would be very different for a lot of different companies, and they would. I think most companies nowadays tend to have their own personality that they have crafted. So they would have like certain companies are very casual and informal, so that would be like their entire personality. Then some companies are very very formal, official, so you get different sort of personalities and different sort of ways that the companies communicate.
Okay, but if that's the case, why should a company even be coming to an agency for UI thing? Why not? Okay, kind of like when you iterate a design, you won't know if that design is perfect, and that whatever the agency gives you is what they think is best, and it'll be very hard to like. It's not immediately obvious whether that design is good or bad. Like it may still need testing from like I'm guessing an audience to use it or for more people to actually use the whatever that you're designing. So why then is the concept of having someone else design it for you rather than an in-house team that is there to continuously iterate more like what is the purpose of that?
So I think mostly in-house teams, right, might not be affordable for a lot of organizations, because to have a full-time design team, you might, with good experience, you might need to like keep them on for a long time, right? And then they wouldn't have the sort of depth of experience that agency designers or just anyone who does a lot of different designs has, because they have been exposed to a lot of different sort of clients. They have understood the market really well, so they would have a very different set of like experience. And when you come to in-house designers, they might most of these projects are not like a long-term sort of project, especially design. When clients hire us, they maybe hire us for 6 months, then the project is done, the client doesn't really need designers anymore. So that's the reason most of them don't have in-house, unless they are like a really big organization where they have full-time work all the time. Then they would actually keep in-house designers, or they really afford it, they can just keep someone there only to wait for the work that's gonna come in. It's really more about economics at this point.
So when people usually when the clients come, they usually say, I'm guessing if it's UI related, it's usually they want a new website for this, or maybe my website doesn't look good. I want to make my website look better and feel better. How much of that is like if why don't how much creative freedom does the agency have itself to say like, oh, I think this is best. I really think this is best for you. Like if the client itself doesn't fully know what's best at all. They're not only are they not the customer, but they're the ones who quote unquote need the help, who aren't sure how to do it best. Usually when they say like if they it's more like how much feedback should they be giving, kind of. Like are they the ones that should be giving the feedback, or should they just be trusting that your research with the customers who are the actual users, should they just trust that that's correct rather than giving their own like feedback themselves?
I think it's always like a collaboration. So we will usually work on the research, come up with findings, blah, 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 then we present it to them. And sometimes the client might not want to actually focus on all of the research. They might want to emphasize certain things, prioritize certain things. So ultimately they are the ones paying, so we will have to follow the sort of direction that they're going with. But so far most projects are quite collaborative. Like most people are really on board based on the research. They're okay to go ahead with this if you can explain and prove that this is what is best for their business. I don't think anyone is going to say no, actually I don't want it to be good for my business.
So, but it's sort of like they don't, not that they don't know better, but it's like they just oftentimes they just trust that the UI that you have planned for them is going to be the best.
They might definitely have some feedback and input, but it's always like a discussion. Like, oh, could we try this? Could we try that? Then sometimes we'll tell them, oh, maybe this is better. Sometimes they have a different reason for wanting this. So if it makes sense, then we'll actually go ahead with that. But other times when we can actually explain to them, no, I think you should actually do a mega menu because it simplifies your navigation, then they'll be quite okay with changes.
And then this website that you crafted for them oftentimes just stays that way for the whole. Okay, assuming it's not a thing that changes, it's not a site that has to change seasonally or something like that. It's oftentimes just the one time they pay the one sum to make a good website and they hopefully don't touch it for the next however many years, I'm guessing. Or however many months or years that they hope that that website stays relevant, that design that you've made is good and relevant for.
Yeah, I think most websites should last for a certain amount of time, or most good ones. But I think when you do research, and also the users are also changing. So when people get older, you're replacing your older users with newer users. So most people tend to update the apps or anything to just fit in with the new demographic. So I think roughly maybe about 3 years to 5 years, people will usually relook at their design again to see is there any difference of habits, behavior changes in my users that I can like enhance.
But how do these people kind of think about, oh, it's time for my website to change? Like, in what way would they know that their website is in need of a redesign or is lacking this or is not giving them a good user experience and so on? Is that something that they research first and then they'll ultimately decide, oh, it's time to hire someone to fix my website? Or is that just something that they feel could help them? Like, how do you identify that the issue with your thing is the UI and then afterwards and then using that to build the UX?
Okay, so when most people get their website redesigned or redone, it's usually because they are sort of not reaching some of their business goals. So they feel like the website could be one of the reasons they're not there. And so to businesses, right, their main aim is their business goal. They don't really care too much about whether the website looks ugly or it looks nice. It could look ugly, but if it's giving them what they need, they don't really need to redo it. So it's like if it works, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So yeah, it's sort of that. So if it's not reaching the goal, it could be a lot of different things, but a website or an interface that's bad could be one of them. So they probably look at a lot of different things, then they'll feel like, okay, maybe the website's a bit dated. So they will approach us or like any other agency to redo the design.
So usually these things are really done from the ground up again. There's not much like adapt, like from the original change here, change there, improve. It's usually ground up, or is it a mix of both?
What do you mean by ground up?
Okay, so like for example, websites, you mentioned how there are changes in it every like 3 years or so. So usually these changes are they added on from the current website, or are they usually from the ground up made?
Yeah, they built from scratch kind of, or
Yeah.
do you take what they've already got on their home, what do you do take their current website and improve upon it?
That depends on what our clients want to do. So some people might feel like, actually I feel like this design just needs a little bit of update. I don't want to deviate too much from the design, so then we will just do like a small update. But some people might feel that they want to actually refresh their design, refresh their branding, just like make everything redone. Then we would do a scratch. So I mean, we would definitely suggest sometimes when clients come in with a very dated website and they say, okay, actually I just want a little touch up, we'll tell them, or maybe you should actually update your entire design so that it's much better. It's a bit like old school, not the best. So I mean, we do try to advise them based on what we feel is best, but ultimately the person who chooses is the client.
Well, a lot of website website maker like Squarespace or Wix and all those, like what if those things already give you templates for good website designs and they have a okay UI, they have smooth animations and all that. Why should they even be coming to our agency or not hiring a team, but just why should they even be coming to an agency instead of hiring someone who knows how to use one of those to make a good website?
I think some of them do. So it just depends on the scale of the website that they're doing, how customized they want the solution to be. So I think a lot of mostly small medium industries, they might go for like a freelancer or individual designer who is doing Squarespace or like Wix, which is not bad, but it's just like lesser customizations are available. So you might not be able to like really do something that's really for your business or like just create something from scratch. Whereas agencies or like maybe more larger sort of companies can do something from scratch because they have the manpower to do that. That's not to say actually that freelancers can't do it. It just really depends. If they want something not so customized and perhaps a little easier on the wallet, they can go for a less customized sort of design. But if they want to spend more and get something more detailed and expensive, they also do that. So it just depends on individual businesses.
Yeah. All right. So I think with that, one last thing I want to ask is, what are some I gotta ask this earlier, but what are some really good looking not really good. What I'm sure is it good if you have a good UI, you won't notice it. Like you don't notice good UI. What have you noticed? Have you ever noticed anything that you just thought that was genius? When you saw it for any place out there, something like I guess I don't know. You always say food delivery. All of them actually look the
I
same.
guess I'm very hungry today. I keep
Oh,
thinking about food. I think okay, so let me think about good. I think I do notice like a lot of time when I'm just serving, I kind of come upon certain things, but they seem to have evaporated right now.
Oops.
Okay, so
Have you ever left a? Did you have a time that you left something very big because you got frustrated with the UI? Then the inverse of that.
yeah, a lot of times. Okay, wait. Let me think of the inverse.
Not small. It's just,
Okay, so the Standard Chartered banking app, right? It's a lot better than any other banking app that I've used. And I'm just like, every time I was using it, I was like, wow, this is just really nice. Like, it feels like the app sometimes reads my mind because when I log in, like, the things that I do are like right at the top, and then it sort of understands your using patterns, and then it shows you the things that you might need most sort of thing, and it's just like a really nice app. I don't know how to explain because good design is like really
impossible to.
yeah, like it's quite hard to tangibly put it in words, but I can definitely feel there's a huge difference between the other banking apps that I use and this one. So I mean, I would, if possible, I would probably use it more
So
because
you,
it
you'd
feels
say that
nicer.
you've not dropped, but you've used the other ones less just because their UI isn't as good.
Okay, not used it less. I mean, I definitely think about them less. Like I don't like think about their user experiences. And I mean, if I might tend to move over like more to this because it's just easier to use. So I mean, that makes things easy for me.
Which one did you drop? Did you drop anything because of that? Did you drop any sort of like thing that you thought, no, this thing, I hate using this now because it's so, I guess, too much for you, or just too unresponsive, or
Quite a lot, but I just can't recall anything right
they're
now.
probably insignificant, aren't they? The
Yeah.
smaller stuff, like,
I mean, you kind of forget about them because they're just so forgettable. If they are good, you tend to remember them longer because they're memorable.
all right, that's fair enough.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, some are just bad.
Yeah.
Usually it's like, where do you usually find the bad ones though?
Where do you usually find them?
Yeah, is there any
I
like
don't go looking for them.
no like you for clients for example like okay not
Oh.
gonna call you but like clients for example is there any specific field or industry where they usually have not so good websites?
I mean, definitely, it's not a industry specific thing. It's more of like the client specific thing. But I think generally, okay, maybe I should not answer this.
Okay. You can.
Okay, yeah, with that okay we should have cut the last like minute or two and okay we are done.
Yeah. So with that, that's another episode of the Just Click podcast. Thank you guys for watching. I mean, you want to shout anything out before? Do you want to say anything to anyone, or do you want to share your socials?
Yeah, look there.
Okay.
Thanks for having me here.
Yeah. All right.
Alright.
Do you want your socials in the description?
Oh no.
No. All right.
Okay,
Our
never
socials will
mind.
not be in the description.
Okay, well with that we've come to the end. Thank you so much for listening to this and yeah,
Bye bye.
adios.
Bye bye.
Bye.